Only the oneness of love and the lover is eternal. Surrender your heart into this union, for all else in this world is momentary. Rumi. We've got the Rumi Oracle out here. Because things have been so heavy recently, I wanted to read on just something nice. So I got that out, and we've got one of the Moonology decks out here. And Yin Moon is the other card that came out. So, accepting help. And she looks a little closed off in the body language, which is about how accepting help makes me feel. And that Yin Moon, Yin being attributed to the feminine, maybe having a tough time receiving help, maybe even receiving love, being burned in the past, maybe. We'll get some cards and we'll see. Because that sacred union, you can attribute that to that internal unity, the animus and the anima, finding that balance within oneself. But this feels more external. I've got the Last Unicorn Tarot out here. I haven't used this in a while. I like this deck. This was a Christmas present to myself, I think a couple years ago. Some more just something nice. Because the world has been worlding lately, feels like. So let's see. What about accepting help and sacred union? I'm going with that. Queen of Swords. Looks like there's two. Queen of Swords and Seven of Wands in reverse. This feels like this is why we can't have nice things. Trying to talk about something nice, and here the Queen of Swords is capturing unicorns and banshees and such. Or I think that she was a harpy. And that Seven of Wands, that's a defensive card, like defending your position, or even a surrender card. So in reverse, it's like trying to get your defenses down, or trying to catch you when they're down. Don't know why yet, though. Because, I mean, in the movie, it was for her to be possessed as an object, as, a sideshow entertainment. And then the same thing, I mean, sort of was occurring, but it was more like a banishment later on in the movie. But it was a rough gig for her, being the last unicorn. It's just like thing after thing after thing. Like, just let her live her life. So maybe that's why you're cautious about accepting help, leaning more on your independence. Nine of Coins. But this is after she'd been essentially like glamour magicked from a unicorn into a human, and she was losing her sense of identity because she had to like mask effectively Is the help being offered something that requires you to mask? As I hear sirens outside. And how helpful is that help? If that's what you have to do, if you can't be your authentic self, is that help you even want? Because, I mean, you might be in circumstances that make you feel like, yes, I need, any help I can get. Not all help is good help. Some help has catches to it. Some help is counting on you not reading the fine print, on you not sleeping on it, on you not looking into their history, like if it's a business deal or something, or looking into the company, anything like that. So what is this help that feels like a ruse? Because even the hag here, she gave her an illusion of a horn. It was so like the average person could actually see that she was a unicorn, but she knew that she was like the real deal. So what's this ruse? Cleansing. Moonrise. That something's gonna be like a fresh start as more sirens go by. That looks like sage leaves. But it's like a ruse that something is going to be a new start. I don't quite know. Because I'm not sure if this is someone from your past or not. Like I can't get a lock on that. This isn't something crazy like somebody from your past working with someone from your present to like mess with you. Or they're doing something to mess with your current relationship in some way. Maybe so. 'Cause that's death in reverse. Not wanting a change to occur. Four of Cups. Apathy. Nine of Cups. That's wish fulfillment. And that's the same skeleton guy as on the death card. And then Six of Wands. Victory. Very juxtaposed. So you've got two like darker cards on the right. Cooler themed colors. Heavier themes altogether. And then more gold and more yellow on the left. Are you maybe with somebody new and trying to get away from the past? Is that like, maybe that's the delineation I can't separate. It's like your past is latched onto you, even though you've moved on to the new sacred union. And is this what you need to accept help with? Because maybe you got so burned by this person, you're having a hard time trusting the new person. Which, understandable. But if there's really a true investment in making that work, the new thing work, might want to consider talking to them about that if that conversation hasn't already been had. Maybe the former, like, isn't getting the picture or is being difficult and whatnot to the point where it's causing strain in the new connection. That's where that apathy might be coming from. And it just kind of seems like, okay, is this going to change? And, I mean, if you are around my age, you've probably dealt with this, you've already had a lot of life happen to you. You've got some people in your past, and they don't always make it easy to move on to the next thing. And while, of course, there needs to be some understanding for, like, life happens, it's weird, especially if somebody's got kids together, stuff like that. But there gets to a point where it's like, okay, are you ready to commit to this union or not? Like, is it always going to be this drama of the past, or, like, are we going to move forward? Maybe it's being held up by some sort of legal thing. That can be tough. Especially if it's, like, holding up a move, it's holding up, I don't know, it's keeping this person more involved in your life than they need to be. And it can be really difficult for people to change lanes in your life. Especially if that lane change includes them remaining in your life. Because it's a little bit cleaner if people are parting ways than it's like, I don't know, that change actually kind of takes root in your nervous system. Whereas the changing of a role in your life to where they were your partner, you were building a life together, and now they're your ex you're co-parenting with. If they're not respectful of boundaries, that can be really difficult to navigate. And it's reasonable to expect understanding from the new partner to a point. Because if the dynamic isn't working for them, it doesn't work for them. Everybody has what they want out of a relationship. And if the situation isn't viable for that, then it's a compatibility issue. It's not necessarily anything to do with you two as people, which doesn't make it feel better at the end of the day. But this Four of Cups, this is just giving me more of that, this is why we can't have nice things. Like, I am trying so hard to have nice things in my life, to just live, to have my sacred union, to be able to accept help. And it's just, around we go on the same merry-go-round, like over and over and over. So how do we interrupt this cycle? So we might want to, if you've been on the same merry-go-round like over and over and over, you might want to give yourself a second to steady, before you immediately try to go down those little stairs. You might fall. Protection. Ring around the moon. It's like that nursery rhyme about the plague. Pocket full of posies. Do you need a restraining order on this person? If so, like, start the process. Lord knows how long that could take if that really is something that you need. And if you have a history with this person, maybe you already have documentation. There's a whole process to those things, and they have to get, like, approved by a judge, and of course consult an attorney if you feel like that's necessary. It's been coming up a lot recently that a good resource to check in with would be like a domestic violence organization. They know the ins and outs of the system, or if they don't, they'll know who to direct you to, or at least have an idea. Because sometimes those little organizations can just barely be getting off the ground, they don't always get the best funding. But there's all sorts of content creators and things like that on the Instagrams or wherever that have their own organizations. They reshare all sorts of little infographics that might have helpful information for you to find. So what do we need to know about protection? Because maybe this is the accepting help. The coming to that unfortunate conclusion where you are accepting how out of hand things really are, and that you do need some sort of intervention, and I'm not saying like organize an intervention on you for your behavior. No, I mean need some sort of professional to step in, separate you two, actually make things more like, we can't just wing this and like argue in the garage every time, the kiddo swaps houses or whatever. Because they can hear you. I grew up in a very yelly household. They can hear you. You're not hiding anything. Sorry to break it to you, but even if you mean well by going into the garage, they're very echoey. And that can really help the kiddo out too, of truly shielding them from the conflict, not having to do the good enough solution of going into the garage. Because in this scenario, this is your ex. I'm gonna make an assumption that y'all don't live together anymore. The conflict, that's your home. You can say like any boundary you want, even you're not coming into the garage. Like none of that. Just doing a flat, this is the custody exchange, and then we have the mediator appointment in 2 weeks. Like whatever it is, something like that. And defer the conversation to that appropriate time. And they're going to have to be the ones that grow up and put their stuff aside for the sake of the kiddo. And we've got judgment in reverse here. So this scene, this is when he glamour magicked her, and it was to protect her. But in this context, I'm getting that maybe the ex might be unwilling to accept that you are protecting your child from them. I don't necessarily mean they're physically harming your child, I hope not. But even protecting them from the yelling can have such a profound and positive impact on them. Because that conflict is for the adults. It needs to stay in its lane. It's just not for the kids. It's not their concern. The place to have it out would be the mediator or the therapist's office, like whatever y'all are doing to carry on the relationship forward in whatever the new form is. Justice, yeah. Balance those scales. Balance out the expectations. Because the conflict can be between the adults all day. Really what matters is a healthy and happy environment. 2 environments for the kid. And it's much easier said than done, expecting the more immature party to grow up, whatnot. I've never been through a custody battle myself, anything like that. So I don't know what kind of provisions might be available to, like, okay, if you don't get your anger problems under control, like, we're coming back to the negotiating table, or if the anger problems are bad enough, or the controlling behaviors, anything like that, maybe they need to go through some sort of, like, rehab program. Anger management. Something like that. Actually demonstrate maturity, not future fake and whatnot. And that's another aspect of taking things in an official direction as opposed to just like the proverbial argument in the garage, is now there's structure to it. Structure that must be abided by. Nobody's flying by the seat of their pants. Nobody's like, he said, she said, anything. No. Now things are happening, documented, with witnesses, with people around, not in the garage. Because that can be a dangerous situation when somebody's not getting their way. People don't like that. So what else about this protection? And maybe that's a restraining order, right as this flips over. 8 of coins in reverse. Something not mastered yet. Something not learned. Yeah, maybe it's a restraining order. Maybe they're not learning their lesson. Maybe this is in order to have nice things, you must put your foot down. And keep it down. And if you are a recovering people pleaser, like myself, that can feel like a lot. Because if this person has gotten accustomed to stomping all over your boundaries, there's probably going to be a short-term escalation. Heating of the tempers, fueling the fire. And that's not to deter you from standing up for yourself, and more just trying to articulate a pattern of behavior that I've seen in my experience, just in my relationships, in family dynamics, and things like that. But when you put your foot down and you actually stand up to the person who's accustomed to walking over people, who's accustomed to bullying people, they only know that way to get their way. So then they're going to just try harder. But, and use your discernment on your own situation, sometimes you standing your ground will get them to back down. That may not necessarily be completely. They might go a more like passive aggressive route, do a more behind the scenes stuff. People are like that. You can't control that though. But it's more, it's a good analogy for this. Think of it like predator and prey in a nature documentary, in the wild, something like that. One defensive strategy of prey animals is to make it seem like they'll be more difficult, like they'll be a problem. You know, they puff up or they get colorful or something like that. And so the predator then has to decide, is this worth it? Is this conflict worth pursuing? I'm not saying your ex is a predator. I'm just using that as an example. So what do we need to do to get nice things, to get back on track? Because I was actually trying to break away from this energy. I'm trying to go for something nice, but it just feels like it's hanging around this, like, I don't know, controlling. I even want to say aggressive. So how do we break free? Exalted moon, self-regulation, but it's in reverse. Take this with a grain of salt, but I'm kind of getting like pop off. Like if you've been the mild-mannered, well-behaved, I can't remember if it was the last reading or 2 readings ago, talking about like you've been abiding by like the social mores, by the code of honor, but somebody else has been acting a fool, talking about you, half-truths, full lies, things like that. Maybe it's time to lose your temper. And again, grain of salt. That results may vary. But some people don't learn until you show them some teeth. And I prefer to do things a diplomatic way, but if you keep trying that over and over and over with somebody who's not amenable to diplomacy, then if you want a different result, you're going to have to do something different. Is that the right word? Amenable? Agreeable? So what do we need to, maybe not, it's not intentionally lose your temper about, but like stop holding yourself back, you know? If you're angry, express your anger, preferably in a healthy manner. You know, don't go fighting anybody, swinging on anybody. It's not necessary. Ace of Swords, the truth. Are you gonna tell somebody about themselves? People don't like that. They don't like that. Interesting. And I think those are laurels or something up top. But these ones are in order, like smoother, and these ones or a little more chaotic. And she's pointing, her horn is pointing to the more chaotic side. But that's a truth. And a lot of people refer to that as like Archangel Michael's sword, a sword of protection. So those words, that can be protection. Just in kind of spooking somebody off in that like prey versus predator sort of thing. But on the other side of the fence, words are spells. That's a very integral part of like the druidic practices and things like that. Poetry, songs, all those were really important to the functions of ancient Irish society. And following through as well. And I wouldn't even, like, if you can keep your wits about you, don't be the James Bond villain and say, like, this is what I'm going to do. Just the boundary, and then if the boundary is not respected, then consequences follow, whether it's additional mediation or whatever the situation may be. But they're grown. You don't have to warn them about consequences. Like, is this the first time that's ever happened to them in their life? Doubt it. Don't know if they actually want to admit that or not, but maybe that's something that you'll be telling them about themselves. And 6 of Cups in reverse. Present time. Maybe you will be telling them about themselves presently. Or maybe how they're acting in the present. Maybe there's been a drastic change in their behavior. They could be dealing with something, some sort of external stressor, addiction, things like that. And there's also the, even if the behavior is new, it doesn't mean the wound is. That's not your burden to carry, but it's just to kind of understand how these things kind of seemingly crop up out of the blue with such force. It's because they've been there for a really long time. And having kids is a stressful event. Any big life events like that, kids, marriage, divorce, addiction, job loss, any of the big stuff, losing somebody, that can aggravate underlying things, old wounds, things you thought were healed, but surprise, they aren't. I guess you don't find out really how healed something is or isn't until, like, was that salt in that? Oh, that kind of hurts still. It happens. Just means there's more to go, that's all. Because trauma healing, I've noticed, comes in cycles, comes in layers. Because sometimes there's only so much you can tolerate at one time before revisiting it. Three of Coins. Teamwork. Are you getting some help telling this person about themselves? Is this an intervention for them? I feel like I'm going to need one more on that 3 of coins. That's working together. Maybe working with, I don't know, family members? Something? And I'm thinking they're family members. Like, maybe everybody knows what's going on. Like, behavior was seen at some sort of... Yes, behavior was seen. High Priestess. Behavior was seen at some sort of event. Like a birthday party. Something like that. And they're seeing the truth. Because she's looking at... Are they actually in human form in her eyes? That is too small for me to see. It kind of looks like that, though, that she's seeing these 2 unicorns down here as humans or in a different form. Or maybe her eyes are just sparkly and pretty. But seeing that truth, seeing behind the illusion, it's like seeing something you recognize, but can't quite put your finger on. Maybe this person has had a significant departure from their former self. And that can be tough, because it can be a lot of different things. Because on one hand, like in this situation, it sounds like it's in a negative sense. Like they're not pursuing their authentic path that they never got to pursue. No, it's something has changed them into something they're not. Like she was not a human, she was a unicorn. Which really makes me think of addiction. And addiction has such deep roots in trauma. In either case, like they're going to need some sort of support system to help get them through whatever it is that they're dealing with. Addiction, grief, trauma, all the above, maybe. Maybe some things long held back that all just burst up at once, and which I'm not unsympathetic to. Back when I had the, as that clock chimes, but back when I had that near-death experience, that was right during a really high instance of these seizures, well before they had been diagnosed. I didn't realize until memory gaps stopped happening later that I was having seizures. It took me a long time to puzzle things together after accidentally getting on seizure medication for pain. That was one of those things like, oh, oops. Why am I getting better by accident? Like, not that I'm complaining, but I don't like that methodology. But when I had that, when right around that time, all the safeguards that trauma had built up in my mind came crashing down at the same time. And so I got access to traumatic memories that I had put away, that it's not that they were completely gone, it's just they they were kind of blocked off, like they were walled off through a fog. And then when all that came crashing down at the same time, I got access to a bunch of things all at the same time. And it was too much information for my brain to handle. And it was so confusing for me trying to get help through the medical system. Like, while you are in crisis is not the best time to be needing help from the medical system. That was really difficult. Because not everybody is actually well informed about trauma, and trauma is still being pathologized as a lot of other things. So maybe that's at the root of whatever is going on, but the leaves of that can still be addiction, mental health issues, and it just spirals into so many different things. The toughest part, I think, in this situation is the environment for the kid. Because it's a really hard line to dance, to try and be empathetic to your former partner and protective of your child. And that, just my experience growing up, neither of my parents protected me from each other and their own individual things and their conflict with one another, which created a really volatile childhood situation for me. And I think there are a lot of other people dealing with complex trauma that are in that situation that we can see later. Like the ingredients that led to our parents like not dealing with their stuff or not being able to deal with their stuff, and still holding space for the way that we were harmed, for the way that we were traumatized. It's a tough one. We've got Tempest by Deftones, and get something special for your pet or your kid. Either way. It's a good song. I haven't listened to that in a while. And getting something special, maybe without attachment to an event. You know, a just cause. Just a something nice, you know, something nice to do. And hopefully, as we approach this upcoming full moon, that full moon in Libra, the pink moon, that will bring to bloom whatever needs to occur to start the next cycle, to move things along. Because that full moon is going to be a lot about relationships, and detaching from how we've been harmed by relationships in the past. But overall, I hope this helps. I continue to not hope that this resonates, but we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.